Hey, it's Greg Harrelson here, and welcome to the Level Up Podcast. I have got my good friend, partner, and fantastic real estate agent, Brendon Payne, on a recording that I just thought would be worthy of you checking out. Hello, it's Greg Harrelson here with Century 21, the Harrelson Group, of course, in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And as you know, I serve multiple markets, including Charleston, South Carolina. And I wanted to have a conversation with my good friend, business partner, and fantastic real estate agent. A lot of you know Brendon Payne here. And he and I have been working together for quite a while. And we want to discuss today, a breakthrough. But we don't want to just talk about, okay, if you want to have a breakthrough in your production in 2019, it's not always about making a few more contacts or a lot more contacts. It's important that you follow a few rules when it comes to starting the new year and making sure you're setting yourself up for a jump start or a big production year, especially for 2019 now that we're here in the holidays. So Brendon, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to finishing up the year strong and getting some good content out for everybody. I think this is going to be a great call because the conversations we've had, kind of enlightened us a little bit, I think, and it might be a little bit more than just saying I'm going to have a breakthrough. So I'm looking forward to sharing this stuff.
Yeah, as we were talking about what we were going to talk about, I realized that everyone talks about having a breakthrough. There's probably a lot of videos, a lot of audios talking about breaking through the next year, but you had a dialogue with me that I found really interesting. I don't think that I've been in that conversation before, and I've been in a lot of real estate conversations, but it went something like, it's interesting that during the holidays, we seem to have low motivation in general as real estate agents. And then all of a sudden January comes in, is here. And then we're responsible, or we are, in order to reach our goals, we have to get into fast motion immediately, go from stop to start at a high pace. Let's recreate that dialogue because I think it'll be helpful.
Yeah, so the scenario or the setup for where this came from was just actually a conversation with some agents in our group. And we were talking about, okay, what do you need to do to set yourself up for the best 2019? And a lot of the motivation was coming from, well, it's going to be the new year. So they were saying, in December, I'm going to kind of take my break. I'm taking a little bit of time off, and then I'm going to really hit it hard in January. And so one of the things that kind of dawned on me is we don't talk a lot about there has to be something beyond just turning the calendar from 2000 to 2018 to 2019, because we, as you mentioned, we're probably in the lowest motivation month of the year. Mm. And so we're in the lowest motivation month of the year. We're, the year's winding down. We're trying to take a little bit of extra time, and all those things are great. But then we're expected to all of a sudden turn the switch and be into the highest motivation, which is month one of quarter one, and just take off. And there's not very many things that turn on a dime like that. So I think what we've, kind of talked about after that was, what are some actual steps that you want to take beyond just saying, you know what, let's just get through December and then I'm going to show up and it's going to be a different day in January. Because your external surroundings are going to change, and you're going to have all the New Year's resolutions, and all that stuff may impact you a little bit, but boy, by the first week, can you sustain that? And if you've got some real actual steps that you can take, it's probably going to be a little bit easier.
Yeah. So this is the time of the year everyone's working on business plans. We've had multiple meetings with our companies about business planning, writing our business plan. And when you look back, and when I look back, a lot of the conversation is about, okay, what is your goal and what are the numbers to get there? And I think this is what you're referring to. That's a critical part of having a breakthrough, is to go through some planning. But I think there's a few more things. I know I wrote on my list, I wrote here, I said, forget about what you need to do. There's 4 things that you need to be in order to really have a breakthrough. Mm-hmm. So let's just assume that the audience for a minute, they know what to do. They've been going through this year after year. There's not a lot of mystery on what to do, but it really comes down to who you need to be in order to have a breakthrough. So the first thing that I put is you've got to be intentional.
Hmm.
Got to be intentional. For me, Brendan, that means like if you want to have a breakthrough, you need to define what that breakthrough looks like. Is that a breakthrough in you want to get more listings? You want a breakthrough in more buyer sales? It can't just be, I want to have a breakthrough. I want to earn more money. That's not defined, and it's hard. It's measurable, but it's not really like defined. So therefore, I think that the likelihood you're going to hit it is unlikely. What are your thoughts on the intentional piece?
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, the first part of any goal is actually stating what it is. And if we just show up and we are going to get what we get by default, that's usually not going to meet our goals. So the first step is actually being intentional and saying, what is it? What is the breakthrough that I want to have? And now your mind's at least focused and going in the right directions, and is going to, probably take you through the actions that are coming up that you need to do. Because
Yeah.
I agree that the actions and stuff, I don't know that if anybody has been following what we coach, I don't think the actions are probably a question of what you need to do, but it's really figuring out, well, how do I now go put these into practice?
Yeah. So what is an example of something that somebody could be intentional about? Like intentional is like defining the goal in a way. I mean, I'm using the term intentional for a reason, but the reality is it's like you've got to kind of state what it is you're looking to accomplish. And I think people need to understand you can grow your production by focusing on many different generating angles.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously lead generation through outbound prospecting is one. So if somebody says, I want to get 100 listings this year, then yes, you could say, I'm going to do that by adding outbound prospecting. And in the area of outbound prospecting, I'm going to work on for sale by owners, expired, centers of influence, and some other means of making outbound calls. But that's not the only way to grow your production. Like, what are some other things that people could do besides just outbound prospecting?
Yeah, well, and I think even beyond the outbound prospecting, or saying my goal is I need to make more calls, or I need to add a pillar, or I need to do more deals, is what's keeping you from doing more deals or being more comfortable in another pillar? And so one of the intentional things that I would bring up on something like that is I want to become better at the blank conversation. I want to be a master at the outbound prospecting call. Or,
yeah, like for sale by owner could be one.
Yeah, what pillar is it? It's not really, I want to go do, if you just say I want to go do more for sale by owner listings, well, everybody can have that. That's an intention, but there's something missing before that, and that is the skill of the person that's making the outbound call. So the intention might be, I want to get really, really good at the conversation. And then when you have 2 or 3 of those pillars lined up, then maybe it's, I want to be really, really, really good at the listing presentation, because you can make all the calls you want, but if you're going in and not converting, not setting appointments, and not getting the listing, then you're not going to get to the end result. So maybe it's stepping back a little bit from the final goal and saying, really, what's the next step that's going to bring me the biggest return here?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's good. So it kind of like peeling the onion a few layers deeper. And getting down to the core of the things that really make the biggest difference. And, like for instance, if your intention is to improve your skills, and maybe it's improve your skills in a certain area of lead generation, whatever that is, when you improve your skills, you're probably going to improve in all your pillars. When you improve skills in one pillar, it's going to transition and translate to everything. It'll carry over to everything you're doing. That's a good point. The second thing that I have on my list is, okay, first you got to be intentional. You got to define what it is that you're looking to have the breakthrough on. The second thing I put down is focus. We've got to channel our attention to this one goal. Like, make sure we resist distractions and really stay focused on that thing that's going to make the difference. So we know, and we've had other conversations. We did a Level Up podcast recently, and talking about distractions. And, and it's not that all of these technology companies and these widgets are out there that are bad. It's just that there's so much out there that's competing for our attention. Sometimes we get off track. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on the focus side of this from a breakthrough perspective?
Yeah, I think that, there's no doubt we are always, and I think this is what makes people successful, is trying to find a new way a better way, but maybe we go a little bit too soon without perfecting a way in a base or a core. So
Yes.
if you're going to add something, and this is the time, boy, you sit down and you think, where did all my deals come from this past year? All right, I need to really increase the ones that worked for me. I need to increase there, so put more focus on what I was doing that worked, and I need to add 2 or 3 other things. Well, the 2 or 3 other things that we add, I think what we don't realize is when we add 1 or 2, 3 additional pillars or additional generating or additional goals in the new year, there are multiple things underneath that now we're going to have to do. So that might mean adding a task to our staff. That might mean following up on something. So we add one pillar, but now we add a bunch of tasks on it, and we can that's where I think a lot of the distractions come in. So the intention is really good, but then we have a tendency to lose focus. And now not only do we let that one take off, but the original stuff that we were doing, now we're grinding on that, and we're not being as productive there as we can.
Yeah. One thing I want to add as you're talking is like the question becomes, do we really lose focus, or do we spread our focus amongst so many things that we don't really have enough focus on that one thing, right? It's like, when I hear losing focus, I'm thinking somebody's working and then they're leaving the office because they're going to go I don't know, play golf or something.
Messing around, or
they're messing around. They're being like the focus goes from production to unproductive.
Yep.
So I think what we've got to be careful in 2019 is making sure that we keep our focus on fewer things. I wrote down something here. It's not about how many things you can work on at one time. It's about how many circles you can complete. So some people, I think, figure like, I'm working on this and I'm working on this and I'm working on this, and they are focused for 12 hours a day on those 10 things, but they're never completing any one thing. And I think the completion of that one thing is where the breakthrough comes through from not being able to manage 10 things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's probably where the confidence comes through to maybe try something else, because there's not a lot that's more frustrating than to have some good ideas, start them, not finish them, and then declare that they didn't work. That becomes a pattern too. So
it becomes a habit, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So the third thing here, because there's 4 of them, the third thing I got, first of all, number 1 is intentional. Number 2 is focus. Number 3 is consistent. You must be consistent. You must work every day at executing on whatever mission you've decided to put in front of yourself. Thoughts on consistency?
Yeah, I think the biggest one here, the biggest takeaway on this one is you have to be prepared that everything is going to take longer than you think it's going to take. I mean, I think anybody, whatever level of success that you found in just about anything, it is going to take longer than you originally thought. There's not a lot of things where somebody looks back and goes, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it was, if you're going to have a high level of success. So realizing that it's going to take a little bit longer, and most of the things, as we've talked about, and I've heard you say literally, I think thousands of times, that you can't expect to know whether or not something works in a 90-day, 60, 90-day period. There is a process that you have to go through, the 6 phases of mastery, where you've got to go from actually just starting with figuring out a new idea, formulation, all the way through. And that doesn't take place over a 60, 90-day period. A lot of times it doesn't take place over a 6-month period. Yeah. So whether it's a new system that you're trying out, figuring out if it works, or it's a new process that you've implemented for yourself, or you're going to get into, I've always focused on just incoming stuff. I'm going to go out and generate some of my own things. Don't declare after 90, 120 days that it didn't work for you, because maybe you're just knocking on the door of that breakthrough.
Yeah, that's good. I put here, one of the challenges, I see this consistency, being consistent and being focused, as really almost a dialogue that kind of toggles back and forth. Because I wrote down here, before you have a breakthrough, you're going to go through boredom. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get intentional and be excited, right? We're going to be excited. Man, this is the new thing. I am committed. And then you're focused and focused and focused. You're consistent. You're consistently day in and day out following your action plan, but then you get boring because it's not sexy anymore. It's not new. It's not fresh. So you get boring, right? Or you get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when you get bored? You turn your focus onto something that's not as boring. It's like the new thing. And I'm not saying the new shiny object. I'm saying it's just something to break up the monotony, to break up the boredom. And then you become inconsistent at completing that one task.
For sure.
So just, we have to keep in mind, and I just want our agents to know that consistency leads to boredom, but boredom leads to breakthrough.
Yeah.
Mastering the repetitious boredom is the access to your next breakthrough. So this is why you got to be intentional, got to be focused, and you got to be consistent. And it does, Brendon, it does take a lot longer. You and I know that. We've done businesses together that, that we, looking back, we were probably a little ambitious in what our expectations were, but now we're like, okay, this is normal. But then at the same token, we also don't want to get complacent and just say, well, it takes a long time. It takes a long time. So we're okay with it. We still need to try to shorten that path as much as we can.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
The last one here that I have is determined. It's determination, intentional, focus, consistency, and then be determined. And I thought of this one because you just can't quit when it starts going wrong. Like whatever you have in our mind, whatever vision we have, the picture we paint, the end picture that we paint, most of the time when we get to the end, it doesn't look exactly how we thought it was. And that's okay, because we know what we know today as when we're setting the goal. And then through the practice of being focused and consistent and, and really working a plan, we learn new things. Mm-hmm. New doors appear. And we walk through those new doors. We learn things that we didn't know before. And then we kind of take a slight different shift that leads us to just as good of an end result, but a slight different picture.
Yep.
So you just got to make sure that you're determined that when things feel like they're not going right, keep going. Mm-hmm. Don't stop.
Be flexible. Have some flexibility.
Yes, and versatility.
Yeah.
Flexibility and versatility are probably going to be very key. And again, I think a lot of times the thing that goes wrong in most agents' mind is boredom. And so they make that wrong, right? It's like instead of like the pro athlete who the days that their friends were doing fun things, they were out there practicing on the golf course, or they were on their practice on the basketball court. They were shooting free throws while their friends were, shooting fireball shots, right? Well, what they're doing is they're honing in on their craft, but it was boring.
Yep.
And they had to be determined to get through that boredom. And then because of their determination, they stayed focused and consistent, and they had a breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I say something too to kind of maybe tie this together with mindset?
Please. Yeah.
So looking at these are all very much under the mindset in where you need to show up as an agent, as a person every day to set yourself up for the breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm noticing in here is like the connection between why you're really and it goes back to the first one, intentional what you're doing, but what's the intention of why you want to get where you want to get? And that becomes that connection of, all right, if I go do this and I stay focused here, it's going to get me here. And a lot of this stuff gets jumbled up when we lose clarity on, if we get here, what does that mean for us? And in a conversation the other day with one of our agents, we were just basically trying to figure out, so the last 12 months, you're looking back and saying, man, I didn't do exactly what I should have done. I know I should have put more time in this. I know I should have been more consistent here. And this upcoming year, I'm going to. So we unpacked it a little bit and said, well, why do you think that, in June, you were choosing to do other things? Well, in the conversation was, I just get frustrated with all the no's and people saying they didn't want to do business. And I said, if you knew that you had to come in and make whatever you had on your list, those things that you had to do. You had to make those contacts. You had to make those follow-up calls. But you knew at the end of the day, you were going to line up, and outside that door was going to be one person that wanted to hire you that day. So maybe not even tied to those calls, but you came in and you put in your time, and one person was there at the end of each day. Would you do that? Absolutely. The answer is absolutely. Okay. So it's really not about the things that frustrate us. It's really not about, well, I get hung up on, or this is getting boring and stuff. It's just that you're not connected between what those things that you have to do are going to potentially get you. Because if you were connected and you knew, all I got to do is show up and do this stuff, and when I walk out, somebody's going to hire me today. Everybody's in 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so spot on this, I believe. And, unfortunately, as a society, whether it be the real estate industry or any other industry, we're looking for instant gratification, right? So isn't that the real issue? Because I think everyone will agree that if you tell me I have to do this, and you can tell me that this is going to occur every day, I do this every day and I get this every day, I think everyone's all in. As long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, the task that we're talking about, I think everyone would be 100% in.
Yep.
But now when we say, okay, if you do this, you're going to get this every month. Now you lose a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, if you do this, you're going to get this every 6 months.
Right.
We lose more people. And even if it's like, if you do this, you get one of these every day, people are in. If you say, if you do this, you get 30 of these every month, now you lose people.
Yep.
If you do this, you get, 180 of these every 6 months, then you lose more people. If you say, if you do this, you get 365 of these every year, you lose just about everybody.
Yep.
But if you think about it, the number's the same. It's still one a day.
Yep. Contacts, listings, appointments, all that stuff, it all translates.
Yeah. You know what? And for those of you listening, Brendon and I are business people just like the audience. So we suffer and have to work through these same temptations and resist and work on our mindsets just as anyone that could be listening to this. But the reality is if you just think about what he just brought up, and that is that desire or need or want, that quick gratification, and not being patient through this process is likely the one thing that's keeping people from the breakthrough that they dream to have.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Anything else while we're wrapping up?
No, that's some good stuff there. Yep.
Good. Yeah, I think I'm very excited about this information. I can't wait to even share it to the agents in our own company. Yep. And, for those of you listening, of course, we're in Charleston, South Carolina, as well as Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So if you know any agents that are moving to our area, we sure would love to talk with them about joining our company, our team. And we're committed to developing real estate agents and helping them get to the next level. Or if you're in one of the markets right now and you're thinking about making a shift or just want some additional coaching, then just reach out to us. Other than that, I think you can connect with both of us on Facebook Messenger. We're pretty easy to find. And that's it, unless you have something last to say, Brendon.
Nope, sounds good. I think we covered it, and always a good time. So
okay, well, we'll see you all on the next time.